share my. Can I take it off for a second? 1 second. Okay, at the end of the share. Okay, we'll start. Missed that. Okay, we're on Daf Yud Ches Amud Beis, and the Gemara is talking about Pi Tikra. So the way the Gemara started previously was that if you have the Achsadra, the awning, all around the courtyard, and it's more than Dalet Amos, so you can't use Ofen Akuma. So if you have Petzimin, which would be like posts that are holding up the awning within 3 tefachim to each other, so then you say Lava, then the Chiddush over there was, even though it was made for the other direction, the awning was made to protect under the awning. So the posts that are made holding it up, it would enclose the awning under that direction. But for the sukkah, in the courtyard, that's a chiddush that you say love, but even for the opposite direction, and everyone agrees to that. But here the Gemara said if you don't have any psimen, you don't have any posts, is there anything else you could rely on? So Abai said pitikra, and we said that means the edge of the awning halachically comes down and closes it off, and even for the other direction also. Rava says not. Rava says they don't say pitikra. The Gemara said something about how many directions do you say it for, and Rashi said that Rashi originally said you can do it on all 3 sides, and then the Gemara right away says you can only do it on when you have 2 perpendicular walls. For the third one you could do it, but even if you have 2 parallel walls, you cannot do it on the back wall because it's too busy, people going in and out. Taisus brings down Rashi the way we saw. We'll learn Rashi, even though the others argue that there's a difference if you're in a courtyard or you're far away from any courtyard. In the courtyard, it isn't so busy, even if you have no official walls because they're Dalet Amos away, but there's not a lot of traffic going through this sukkah. So then you would say even on all 3 sides. But if you're in a place where people are going to be walking through these parallel walls, so then you wouldn't say pitikra. And Rashi said that schach also might be considered pitikra if it's made out of boards. Rashi also points out it has to be thick. And Taisus brings down in Erevin from this Rashi that you only say pitikra if it's a tefach thick. Okay, that was yesterday's sugya. The Gemara ended off with one more point that we find a similar machlokis in the early generation. If you say pitikra, that's Rav and Shmuel. Rav and Shmuel were talking about Hilchas Shabbos, not about Hilchas Sukkah, and they were saying if you have a pergola, some kind of a pergola that's not next to any house, Achsadra Bebika, and could you carry under that? There are no mechitzas, you have no partitions. But Rav says you do have partitions because pitikra, this Achsadra, this awning, pergola, we'll call it pergola. I mean to say a pergola with a roof, not just the boards alone. You have to have some kind of a roof. But you had a awning of a roof, a flat roof, and it meets all the conditions of pitikra. So Rav says you have 4 mechitzas all around you. You don't see anything, nothing physically coming down, but halachically we see the edge of the tikra on all 4 sides coming down. And Shmuel says you don't say that. So the Gemara initially said that Rav and Shmuel seem to be the same machlokas as Abai Rav of later generations. Rav says pitikra, Shmuel doesn't say pitikra. Abai says pitikra, Rav doesn't say pitikra. Abai seems to hold like Rav, and Rav seems to hold like Shmuel. That's Rav 2 on the bottom of the page. The Gemara thought, maybe we'll read it already. Lema, top line. Let us say, Abai Rav beflook to the Rav Shmuel kamifliki. It seems Abai Rav arguing the same machlok as Rav and Shmuel. The Itmar we learned Achsadra bebika. Achsadra will say it's like some kind of an awning, a pergola, inside the open area. Rashi says not next to any houses. It doesn't have any walls. Rav Hamamutal Tatu Bakulo. The mean particular so Rav says you could carry under the whole thing, even though it's bigger than Dalet Amos. You're not allowed to carry on Shabbos more than Dalet Amos, but you're allowed to carry as big as it is because the walls come down on all 4 sides. The Dalet Amos. The Lam meaning particular so saying you can't carry over there. Of course, Dalet Amos you could because Dalet Amos you're allowed to carry even in Rishos Rabbim as long as you don't carry more than Dalet Amos. But you can't carry under the whole thing because there are no walls. You don't say pitikra. Doesn't it seem that Rav Abai holds like Rav and Rav holds like Shmuel? The Gemara continues. I'll leave with the Shmuel Kolyamalo Plini. Kipligi leave with the Rav. Everyone agrees that according to Shmuel, the Shmuel does not hold a pitikra. Rashi explains that this is a term used in the Gemara often. In the Shas we had one not so long ago. When the Gemara means to say such a lashon, it means that no one will argue that according to Shmuel, there's no question. Shmuel surely says no pitikra, and Abaye cannot reconcile himself with Shmuel. Abaye says pitikra, and Shmuel does not say pitikra. And Abaye says, I can't hold like him. If anything, I hold like Rav. But keep leave with the Rav. On top of page you test, keep leave with the Rav. But the machlokas Abaye and Rav will be according to Rav. Rav seems to say, you do say pitikra. That holds like Abaye. Abaye Karav. Abaye goes simple like Rav. But Rav says I could also hold like Rav. Not necessarily am I only like Shmuel. I could say that Rav also agrees to me. Rav Amalacha Atkam Lakam Rav Hasam Elu the Mechitzas Lasad Yehuda Avidi. Avalacha Lamach Yavidi. No. Over there, the case of the Achsadra, if we think about it, the walls that we want to bring down, the Pitikra on all four sides, is to enclose the area that the Achsadra is covering. You have a shelter. Think of a awning, a shelter, an umbrella kind of a thing, just one awning, and you want to bring down the walls on all four sides in order to be carried under there. So that means that the walls are enclosing the area that the roof is covering. That's the right, they're called the right direction, under the direction that it was made for. Over there, Rava says, I also agree to Pitikra over there. I just don't agree to Pitikra in the case we're talking about Achsadra, that you have the case of the awning on all three sides, the U-shaped courtyard, and you want to make the schach in the middle of the courtyard. Over there, the awning was not made to shelter the courtyard. It was made to shelter under the awning. So over there, that you want to do Pitikra, but the direction that it was not made for, call it the opposite direction. That's why I said you don't say Pitikra. So that's the end of the Gemara. I mean, so far, what did the Gemara say? That the Machlokas Abaye and Rav is if you say Pitikra on a roof, which was made for sheltering itself under it, and over there under it, everybody would hold it, say Pitikra to consider it closed in, like Vahel Shabbos. But over here, that you want to make the wall should be used as a Pitikra for on the other side, but it was not made for, like the Achsadra was made to cover the shelter under the awning. And now you want to use it to be a wall for the courtyard, the opposite direction. Abai says even that's good. The Rava says no. Over there you don't say Pitikra. The Gemara has a kasha from our Mishnah. Tanan. That's the case of our Mishnah. Our Mishnah said 3 cases of Dofen Akuma, that he can have a case where the schach is not right next to the wall. Excuse me. I'm sorry. I just have to stop a second. Mother, and when she calls, I have to answer. Okay. Okay, I'm sorry. My mother had called, I just had to answer her. Okay, we're back. I'll announce it afterwards. So, Gemara again. Okay, so the Gemara says that everybody holds that you say Pitikra for the direction under the
Rebbe,
shelter.
did we just get a lesson in Kibbud Aim that we should know that that's what we need to do?
I think so. I think it's the right thing.
Great. Shakoyach.
Thank you. And the machlokes is if you say Pitikra for the opposite direction. There was a kasha in the Mishnah. The Mishnah says a case of an Achsadra, that it says that if it's more than $1, you don't say Dofen Akuma, so then it's not good sukkah. And the kasha is if you have Pitikra, so you still have Pitikra, what's the problem? Even if you don't have the $1 of the using Dofen Akuma, if according to Abai you say Pitikra, so then why is the Mishnah say that it's not a good sukkah? That it's not kosher, it's $1. My name of Pitikra V'sosem. The more answers, the Gemara Rav has no problem. Rav says, Rav is the one who's on the attack over here. He says, you don't say Pitikra, but Abai says Pitikra, so the kasha is on him. So Rav says, I'll help out Abai. It means Rav is the opponent, but he has an answer to answer Abai. That's the answer. That you made level you leveled it to the roof, which would mean that usually when you make schach on top of let's say the case we had the awning on 3 sides, a U-shaped courtyard, then you put schach in the middle. So usually you're going to lay the schach on top of the awning and an overlap, and that's what's holding it up. So then you look up, you'll see the Pitikra, and then the kasha will be, so it's kosher sukkah because you have Pitikra on 3 sides. So Abai will have to say that you're right. In that case, it will be kosher. The case of the Mishnah where it's not kosher is where you made the schach flush to the awning. So you don't see the Pitikra anymore. Pitikra is only if it's noticeable. If you see the Pitikra, if you see the edge. But if you don't see the edge because it's covered up by the schach, you look up, all you see is schach, and then you see the awning where you don't see any Pitikra. You don't see any edge of the tikra. So over there, there's no Pitikra. So we can answer Abai also. So far, just to get the machlokes, love what everybody holds, you say even for the opposite direction that it was made for. But Pitikra is machlokes if you say it for the opposite direction that it was made for. The Surah, Masni Lashmaita Bahidashno. The whole Gemara we just learned so far was the version that was said in Surah. Again, Surah and Pumbedisa, we had Narada the other day also, different cities in Bavel, and the version was the version that they said in Surah. But in Pumbedisa, they had a different version. But Pumbedisa, Masni, in Pumbedisa, a different city in Bavel, they had a different version of the Bav Machlokes between Abba and Rabba. This version is more machmir, that if there's no psiman, we said psiman means having posts holding up the achsadra less than every 3 tfachim. So is lavud. The first lesson said that if you have psiman, everyone knows that is good. Lavud you say even for the other direction. This version is more machmir and says no. Yesh lab psiman, ain't lab psiman if it doesn't have any posts holding it up. There's no lavud. Nobody holds to say pitikra. Even Abaya doesn't always say pitikra if it's for the wrong direction. The machlokes is if you have psiman, you have every 3 tfachim, you have posts. Will you say lavud and maybe be machshir at the middle of the courtyard because you have lavud on all 3 sides? Abaya machshir amin on lavud even for the opposite direction. You don't say lavud for the opposite direction. So this lashon is much more machmir. The pitikra you surely don't say, and even lavud is a machlokes. We'll pass like Rava, but by pitikra, but by lavud. Rava also is going to say that you don't say lavud for the opposite direction. You pass like the first lashon that lavud you do even for the opposite direction, and pitikra you don't. That's how we pass. You pass like the first lashon according to Rava, according to Rav.
Opposite direction because the awning is on that.
It was made for one direction. When you have an awning, you have a house, and in front of it is an awning near the house, and you made posts hold up the awning. All that was made for under the awning. What was the awning made for? To shelter under. What would a post made for? To hold up the awning, which is sheltering under the awning. It's not made for the courtyard. The posts you made that are holding up the awning are not made to be a mechitza for the courtyard. But now you want sukkahs, you want to utilize it to have a good mechitza over here. So that's machlokes. Could you say lavud for the opposite direction that it was made for? And we pass yes, that lavud is good even for the opposite direction that it was made for. But pitikra, like Rav, no. Pitikra is only good for under the shelter. Let's have a Hilchos Shabbos. You have an achsadra, so you want to say pitikra to enclose the area under the shelter, under the achsadra. That you're allowed to do. But you're not going to use pitikra for the opposite direction that it was made for. If that's good, the Gemara continues.
The picture yesterday with the red arrows. Right?
That's the picture, right? That's the picture. That's the picture that you'll have pitikra and it's being made to the opposite direction. We don't hold it. We hold like Rav, you don't say that. Only Abaya holds that, and we hold you don't say pitikra for the courtyard, only for the direction of under the achsadra where it was made for. And by sukkah, it doesn't help you because you need schach. Under the tikra, there's a tikra over there. There's an achsadra. So it's only relevant for Hilchos Shabbos. Rashi also said before that if the schach itself is going to be made out of boards, maybe and it's thick, a tefach, maybe also you'll say pitikra even on the schach itself if you have 2 perpendicular walls. The Gemara continues. The story over here. Ravashi met Rav Kana that he was using schach by an achsadra that didn't have semen. The simple words sound like there was again we have this U-shaped courtyard that has three houses on the sides, and they have awnings in front of each of the houses, and there's a sukkah in the middle. You put schach on top of it, and we're looking for the walls now. Rav Kana made such a kind of a sukkah on achsadra she'ein lo psimin. There were no posts over there, so Rav Kana made the schach, and where's the walls? The walls of the house is Dalet Amos away, like the Mishnah says that it's not going to say Dofen Akuma. There were no posts. So what are you being samach on? What are you relying on? Pitikra. Amalei. Ravashi said to Rav Kana, don't you hold like Rava that says if it has no psimin as possible? Means it seems you're relying on Abayi's opinion that pitikra goes for the other direction. Is that possible? You're holding like Abayi, you pass like Rava that if it has no psimin, if it has no post, we're not going to say that it's kosher because of pitikra. But end up psimin psula, you have no psimin. So how come you're saying this kosher? Achilei, say shodim near v'chutnim v'shavah v'chutz. They take out this gear, so maybe. But the simple one is inami near v'chutz v'shavah v'chutnim. That even though you couldn't see it inside the sukkah, they were inside the sukkah. Let's say here's the diagram. They were inside the sukkah. You see, it's an aerial view, and you have 2 walls to the sukkah. They were sitting in the sukkah, and you just saw 2 walls. And he said he saw an awning over there. You have to realize, just picture it there, sitting in the sukkah, and you see the awning. But he says, okay, what do I want to use that? You want to use the walls of the house? That's Dalet Amos away. The awning doesn't help you. The walls doesn't. It's not Dofen Akuma. It's more than Dalet Amos, and no psimin over here. What do you have? So he took him and come outside, and he showed him that there's a wall over there. This wall, if you're sitting inside the sukkah, there's tefach over here. You don't see from inside the sukkah, but outside you do see it. That's called nirba b'chutz v'shava mibifnim. So the question is, why is that good? It has nothing to do with pitikra. It has nothing to do with lavud. Rashi says it's the regular din of 2 walls and a tefach. And usually we always knew 2 walls in a sukkah.
Yeah,
And
but there's not going to be sukkah, it's the next sukkah.
sukkah, here's sukkah.
Oh, that.
He's sitting in the sukkah.
It's
Yes,
going
yeah.
up, but that extra wall's going up. It's not in
So that, and the chiddush is nirba b'chutz v'shava mibifnim is okay. Even though you don't see it inside, you see it outside, it's good enough. There's a huge chiddush because you have 2 walls and where's the tefach? Outside. Outside is good. So the Gemara seems to say that it's okay. The problem is there are a lot of problems with this. And also the Gemara said earlier on the Zayin, I think it was, that this tefach, it's not just doing a tefach. You have to have tefach means a tefach and a mashu, and you put it within 3 tefachim, so it's lovely. Altogether you have 4 tefachim. You also have to make a Swiss Pesach till the end of the wall. So this Gemara doesn't seem to fit with the Gemara before.
It doesn't seem like this is sichli. I don't understand. Doesn't seem logical. The sukkah is, we're trying to build an environment. So why would the tefach, if it's outside, how does that help build the environment?
So the Gemara that said in Arabic this concept about nirba b'chutz v'shava mibifnim, even though you don't see it inside, if you see it outside, is good enough. You're right that over there it's talking about Arabic. They have to have a lechi, the lechi in the beginning of the movoy, either that it should be a mechitza or a heker. But to say that it's a mechitza and it's outside, I identify with your question. I agree. I don't understand it. How could it be good that it's outside? It isn't, like you said, it's not enclosing. It's not an environment. You're not making a sukkah that has 2 walls and a tefah. This is how Rashi learns. To point out an easier pshat than Rashi, and it seems the Ikar Allah is like the other pshat, the Rambam. He learns altogether different. When the Gemara says before psimen, as psimen is kosher, he says that it still has to do with pitikra. No pshat. We didn't say it yesterday. We're saying it today. That the Gemara yesterday, and at the bottom of Yud Ches, when it said that has psimen is good, not because of lavud, but not because you have post the whole time. But even though Abai said you say pitikra, Rava says you don't say pitikra only if the awning has posts. Probably even 2 posts, not one post, 2 posts. If you have a post over here and a post on the other side, and a chsadra, an awning which has 2 posts, so then I am going to say pitikra. It's more of a tikra. It's more of a significant awning if it has posts. And then I'm going to say pitikra or the sosim. You say that the edge of the awning halachically goes down to the floor. So Rabbi says you say pitikra or the sosim even for the other direction, even if it has no posts at all. And Rabbi says only if it has posts. That's how Rambam learns pshat in the Gemara before, and this Gemara is very simple according to the Rambam. Nothing about 2 walls and a tefach. It's still going because of pitikra, but the pitikra that Rabbi says is the kasha if you have semen. If you have 2 posts, a post over here and a post over here, make it also. And even though you don't see it in the sukkah, you see it outside. But the point is not because of lavud, not because of 2 walls and a tefach, because of pitikra. Pitikra, you could say pitikra as long as the tikra has 2 posts, and the post is what he didn't see. He was sitting inside the sukkah. He just saw the 2 walls. He didn't see anything else. So whereas your achsadra doesn't help you because you don't say pitikra. So he said, no, I do say pitikra because this achsadra has posts on either side. You just didn't see it. Come outside and I'll show it to you. So the Rambam will be a much easier pshat. Hope that's clear. I hope to get pictures again one day.
In general,
But
post on the bottom.
post means something which holds up, like you have some kind of a pillar, something which is holding up a post. If you have an awning, so sometimes you could do a good construction that held up without anything touching the floor. But it's simple.
To the wall, but we're saying that.
But now they also have posts. You have posts at the far end, the end which is closer to the courtyard. You put a post from the awning to the floor, and that holds it up. The fact that it holds it up, so that makes it, according to the Rambam, that makes it more of a pitikra, and you're not even there. Everyone will say that you're luckily bring down the pitik. They say minadin the luck is like the Rambam. So the Shulchan Aruch brings down the Rambam that you do say pitikra if it has 2 psimen. The Shulchan Aruch brings it down. That's the halacha. But the Ramah says better to be machman like Rashi lachatchila, that you don't say pitikra even if it has these posts. Rashi doesn't say this pshat. Rashi just says psimen means that you have love, but you have one every 3 tefachim. So this is the Rambam's pshat, which fits easier into the Gemara. But and we do pass like that minadin. But they do bring down Rashi to be machman like Rashi and the Rosh that you don't say pitikra even if you have 2 posts on the sides. A new Gemara, Tana. This is a new sugi altogether. Tana. We had the terminology before, but we didn't get to the main sugi. Here's the main sugi. The word psal doesn't mean puzzle. It's very confusing. It doesn't mean puzzle. It means psal. Psal is from the word psal is born b'yekev, which means kosher schach. So the word psal, it means kosher. It doesn't mean puzzle. It means kosher. Kosher schach, which is coming out of the sukkah, is considered a sukkah. That's the terminology that he said. Psal hayotze min sukkah is nidin k'sukkah. Those are the words. And what does that mean? So it means the words literally mean schach coming out of the sukkah is considered a sukkah. What does that mean? My psal is a sukkah. What does that mean? Amar ulas. We're gonna have four pshatim over here. Ul is the first one. Amar ula. The schach which extends behind the sukkah. Let's say you have a sukkah of 3 walls, so the sukkah is kosher, and the schach was longer than you needed. You have whatever a 2-meter sukkah, but you got 3-meter schach. So the schach extends behind the sukkah. So, and it's kosher. You're allowed to sit behind the sukkah under the schach. There's no walls. But being a shalish tfanas, you have to have 3 walls. With the ikka, you have 3 walls also. It means that you made 2 walls of your sukkah, and then the 3rd wall, instead of putting it by the end to make it as big as you needed, you didn't need you didn't need a 3-meter sukkah. You made a 2-meter sukkah. So you pulled the back wall in, and now it comes out that you have 3 walls in the second compartment. It means you have behind your back wall of the sukkah is another sukkah. You created like a H kind of a shape. That you have a sukkah, and you didn't need that, and the back sukkah happened by itself, so to speak. That you have another sukkah over there. Vavina nechta sukkah is you have to have 7 by 7 tefachim. Also, bedika, you have that also. Vavina slas mubim mechamas, it has to be shady. It's not enough a little bit stuff. You have to have shady stuff. Yeah, bedika, you have that also. So it came out that you made regular sukkah. Yes, and so yeah, you made 1 sukkah. Well, now you have 2 sukkahs. You go around the back corner. So the Gemara says, "Yachi ma'lamim." What's the chiddush? It's a regular sukkah. You might think that since it was made this side, it wasn't made on the outside. That's happened by itself. You might think that's not good. I would think the Pashtan the Gemara would mean that that's not called you made it for shade. If I made it I only made it 1 sukkah. I didn't need the other sukkah. I didn't realize. Then I walk around the corner. I see there's not a sukkah over here. So that happened by itself. It's like it nasa meila. So you might think that it wasn't made for shade. Kamashman, that's also called I made it for shade because I put down all the schach and I made the wall a little bit in, so it comes out that the schach is outside the sukkah, but I made it for shade also. Kamashman, that's good. But
Excuse me.
Yes, please.
Is making it for shade, that's the same as l'shem mitzvah sukkah?
No, l'shem mitzvah sukkah means you're doing it for the mitzvah. For shade means doing it
So
for shade.
when you were doing it for the mitzvah, that was for the main sukkah. You weren't doing it for a second sukkah, were you?
It could be. The halach is we paskin that if it's made for shade is good enough. L'chatchila we say that it's better, like the Rishalmi, to be mechadish b'davar, to do something. We had the Gemara before by Ganvach and Rakvash, all those Gemaras over there. The Pashas in the Bible, he says you don't need l'shem sukkah, you just need l'shem tzel. There's no such thing as l'shem mitzvah sukkah, you do l'shem tzel. But the Rishalmi says you should make it, if you could, you should make it a little bit something for sukkah. So, but
Okay.
here also, it wouldn't bother me so much because since the whole thing was made for the sukkah, for tzel, for sukkah, and then you pull the wall in, so it happened by itself. But the sukkah, the schach was put down for one reason. You took long schach and you put it down for the mitzvah sukkah. Some of it you didn't need it, some of it you didn't need it. And Kamashma, that's all called a good sukkah. So that's the first pshat in Psal Yosem and a sukkah, that you have a sukkah which happened by itself. So it's also kosher, and that didn't happen by itself. It happened as an extension of your sukkah, and you got a double sukkah instead of a single sukkah. That's also good, and that's true. That's only possible.
Read over to another area.
Think of an H. Think of an H.
Yeah.
Instead of making a U, you made an H,
Okay.
and you have 2 sukkahs now.
Oh, I see. And the wall in the middle.
Yeah, you didn't make it for that. You really made only 1 sukkah. Then you go around the back. You say, "Yeah, another sukkah over here." The kids. Oh, we have a kid sukkah now. We have a little sukkah over there. It's kosher because it has all the requirements. It has schach. It has 3 walls. It has 7 by 7. The only thing is, you might have thought that it wasn't made l'shem sale. It is made l'shem sale also. Rashi talks about the walls. Rashi's a little difficult to me. Rashi talks about that you might think that the walls were not made for that direction. That's not a chiddush because you don't need walls for any direction. The walls are solid walls.
Right.
So the chiddush should be that the pashut will be that the schach was not made for sale. The mashpon is also made for sale. That was the first pshat. We passed like them. We're going to pass like all the pshatim. All of them are true. But the Gemara says 4 pshatim. What does it mean? What does it mean? Psal yosem and sukkah needing the sukkah. Second pshat. Rav Yosef Amri Tabayu. Rav Nevos both say the following pshat. It's in the front of the sukkah, not in the back wall. The schach extends in front of the sukkah. And one of the walls, it goes as far as the schach does. You have a sukkah, but one wall is a short wall, one wall is a long wall. The schach goes as long as the long wall, but you only have a short wall on the other side. You might think that you don't have all the requirements of the sukkah in the big sukkah. You only have one wall. In the part of the sukkah which has 3 walls around you, so that's kosher. But the part which extends further, maybe it's not kosher. The mashmalan, that's also kosher. So Rashi points out that every sukkah, whenever we say 2 walls and a tefach, so there's one longer wall and the shorter wall, and he said the whole sukkah is kosher. We did say that you have to have over there lavud plus Tzuras Pesach, but it comes pasha to the poskim that you don't have to have more than 7 tefachim. Based on this Gemara, you can have one long wall, call it whatever you want, 10 amas, 20 amas, 30 meters, you can have very long, and you have 7 tfachim perpendicular to it, and then 7 tfachim. So one wall is 7 tfachim, the other wall is 20 meters, that's fine, because the schach is kosher, that's called shal yasem min ha-sukkah. You have the part which is kosher, 7 by 7, and then the sukkah continues with one wall. One wall and the schach continues long, the whole thing is kosher. And that's the halacha also. That's also the halacha. The third shot, Rabbi Baba Chanan Rabbi Yochanan. You have to have kosher schach. The chiddush is that, where's your third wall? You're sitting in a sukkah with a back wall, and someone looks at you, where's your sukkah? He's only a back wall. So he says, come, I'll take you for a walk. You walk down 30 meters, and you get to the perpendicular wall, and then there's a little wall that's 7 tfachim, that's the third wall. So here I have 3 walls. So you don't, it's not all next to you. You're far away. You might think that the sukkah only goes as long as your short wall. No, the sukkah goes as long as your long wall, as long as you have schach. Third chance. Yeah, schach all the way. Rabbi Bar Yochanan Rabbi Yochanan. Lo nisrucha lo sukkah sheruba tzilasa mechamasa sheruba, yeah, umiyuta hamasa meruba mitzilasa. Yeah, the chiddush is going to be that you have a sukkah which most of it is shady, and a minority of it is sunny. When I say sunny, I mean sunny, more sun than shade. Most of the sukkah is well roofed, a lot of schach, shady, but part of the sukkah is not. You might think that the whole sukkah becomes possible because some of it is sunny. That the whole sukkah doesn't become possible. You look at each one by itself maybe, and the part which is lasa muba mechamasa is still kosher. There's another gears over here that makes it a little more, even more easy. You might think that the part which is chamasa mitzilasa is possible. That the part which is shady, but the part which is sunny is sunny. You look at the whole sukkah as one unit, and you count up all the shade of the sukkah, and if it's lasa muba mechamasa, it's kosher. You don't look at each spot by itself. If most of the sukkah as an entire unit, most of it is shady, even though a minority of it is sunny, of course you can't have a space which is 3 tfachim, because once you have a space which is 3 tfachim airspace, it's not kosher. But you don't have a space which is 3 tfachim. It's just that it's loose and you have more sun than shade. If most of the sukkah is more shade than sun, even that part is also kosher.
You can sleep under it.
And you can sleep under it also.
Excuse me, why would that be called chutz?
Very nice. The Gemara says, what does the word mean? What does it mean yotze? What's yotze over here? The answer is yotze mechsha sukkah. It doesn't meet the requirements of sukkah. You're right, it's not such a simple reading, but it doesn't mean that it goes out. The first shot was that it goes out means it's outside the sukkah, either in the back or in the front. This third shot is a little bit more philosophical to say that it's yotze, that it's yotze min sukkah means that it doesn't meet the requirements of sukkah. The fact that it's sunny. And the Gemara accepts that also, and that's also true. That's also the halacha. And the fourth shot, Rabbi Shaya Omer, lo nitzrucha ela l'schach pasol mepachos mishlosha b'sukkah ktana. That if you have a small sukkah, 7 by 7 tfachim, and you have schach pasol less than 3 tfachim, that is kosher. We spoke about this yesterday, that even though we say usually that the schach pasol is allowed to be until 4 tfachim, but here it talks about a sukkah ktana. If it's a small sukkah, we said yesterday, the whole sukkah is 7 tfachim. You can't have less than 4 tfachim schach pasol. How much schach kosher do you have? We said it's not even enough to have 4 tfachim of schach kosher. You have to have 4 plus. You have to have a little bit more than 4 tfachim of schach kosher, and the avir or the schach pasol is less than 3 tfachim. That is kosher. And the chiddush is that is kosher. The Gemara says it's kosher. Of course, it's kosher. It's kosher even if you have no schach pasol. It's kosher even if you have ear. First of all, what does the word yotze mean? Same way like Yaakov asked, what does the word yotze? What's yotze? Yotze means Torah sukkah. That it doesn't. It's not kosher schach. That pshala yotze min sukkah. If you have schach which is not kosher, needing sukkah is still kosher, and you're allowed to use it. And the Gemara said a kasha. Is that a chiddush? Is there a chiddush that if you have schach pasol less than 3 tfachim, you're allowed to sleep under it? I didn't say good. I jumped. Is it a chiddush to say that schach pasol less than 3 tfachim is kosher? Maskef la v'shaya. Well, yeah, la avir. Even if it's not schach pasol, even if it would have been ear, no schach at all. Avir pachas mishlosha tfachim v'sukkah ktana mi pasol. If you have ear less than 3 tfachim, even in a small sukkah, it's kosher. If you have a sukkah which is 7 by 7 and you have ear less than 3 tfachim, it's kosher. Nothing more takes for granted. So surely, if you have schach pasol less than 3 tfachim, it's kosher. What's the chiddush over there? By ear, it is true that the ear less than 3 tfachim doesn't pasol the sukkah, but you're not allowed to sleep over there. You can't eat or sleep over there. It doesn't pasol the sukkah, but still you can't use it. But by schach pasol less than 3 tfachim, even allowed to sleep under there once also. So here is where the Gemara talks about by schach pasol is better than ear. That even when ear, we had one halacha that ear passes with 3 tfachim, and usually schach pasol passes with 4 tfachim. Now we're talking about, can you sleep? Could you sleep under it? Could you eat under it? So it says by ear you're not allowed to sleep under it, even though it's less than 3 tfachim, you can't sleep and eat under it. But by schach pasol you may. Some poskim say this Gemara says less than 3 tvachim. How about schach pas less than 4 tvachim? That is kosher, but I gotta sleep under it. So the Mishnah is not a machlokes. Some say that only our Gemara says 3 tvachim. Less than 3 tvachim you gotta sleep under, even though it doesn't pass the sukkah until 4 tvachim. But don't sleep under it only if it's less than 3 tvachim. See, that's what the Gemara says, that by ear it combines to the sukkah, means it counts to be the sukkah still kosher, and you're not allowed to sleep under it. But by schach posel, it's mistaf and even allowed to sleep under it also. The Gemara is surprised. It's the rufei mistaf. Who asked what?
Like shpudim,
What?
even shpudim,
I'm not following.
even shpudim.
Schach posel less than 3 tvachim, you're allowed to sleep under it also. Even though it's schach posel, the sukkah is kosher sukkah, and you have schach posel less than 3 tvachim, you're allowed to sleep under it also. Not only is it better than ear, even though that less than 3 tvachim doesn't pass the sukkah, it's considered one sukkah. You have all the walls, you have a wall here, a wall there, but you can't sleep under that part. Like we have sometimes, Levi Yaakov shows us the picture that is the green area, the red area, don't sleep over here. But when you have schach posel less than 3 tvachim, even allowed to sleep under there also. Some say even less than 4 tvachim, but that's machlokes. That the Mishnah will be down some on the less than 3 tvachim. Now it says. Yes, but the point that the Gemara say, you're right, the Gemara is talking about a small sukkah, but the point that the Gemara, that's why someone is going to say that if it's a big sukkah, then the shear is going to be 4 tvachim, and the same halacha will be allowed to sleep under 4 tvachim. But some say that the Gemara says sleeping under it only less than 3 tvachim. That's where the Machlokes Achronim comes. If you're allowed to sleep under schach pasel less than 4 tvachim in a sukkah gedola. True. The Gemara is surprised that this whole concept that you have something which is mistarif and it's not kosher. So Taisva seems to learn that the point is, how could it be that ear is not kosher, but it's still a kosher sukkah? You can't sleep under it, but it's still kosher. I'm not sure if everyone learns this way, but Taisva seems to learn that the Gemara is surprised that ear is mistarif and you're not allowed to sleep under it. I'm Rav Yitzchak ben Eliashiv. You don't find the word Eliashiv too much in the Gemara. Here it is. I'm Rav Yitzchak ben Eliashiv. We do find such a thing. Titanorek Yochiach, the top of Yitesam's base. Titanorek will show you. Titanorek means mud, which is liquidy, pourable, like the harik is the pour. That it's so loose that you could pour it. It's not a thick mud; it's a thin mud. So shemitzarek la'abam sov atol also that it does combine to become part of a mikvah. You need mikvah to be 40 saw. Could use mud, so of course thick mud you can't, but loose mud you could, and it combines to the shear of 40 saw, but you can't be total in it. Taisha says that even that, what does it mean? That Rashi says if you have a whole mikvah of mud, a whole mikvah of mud is not good. It has to be water and mud. Probably rove has to be water, then the minority could be mud. But Taisha says even bigger chiddush that even though the mikvah is made out of water and mud, and they're all together 40 saw, but you can't tovel in the mud part. You have to be tovel in the water part. It says the same thing, is that the comparison will be not good. What do you say?
So what is the word
That's a low tefillah. If you're tovel in the mud,
Oh, the mud.
in the mud, the mud is enough to be considered part of the 40 saw. You don't have 40 saw of water. You have 21 mikvah's kosher, but you can't be tovel in the mud part. So too, the ear is enough to be mistarif to the shear of the sukkah, but you can't sleep under the ear. So that's the halacha. So that's the go ahead. Right. Even a sukkah 7x7, if it's half plus less than 3 tvachim, you gotta sleep under it. And if it's a big sukkah, our regular sukkahs are big sukkahs.
Your head can't be under the
Avir not. Again, avir not. Less than 3 tvachim is still kosher sukkah. You have all the 3 walls, but you can't sleep under that part. But by schach posel, you may sleep under the schach posel if it's less than 3 tvachim, and some poskim say even if it's less than 4 tvachim. Okay, that's the halacha that comes out of that Gemara. And also all these halachas are halacha. If you have if you made a sukkah that the back all of a sudden became a sukkah by itself, also kosher. The front sukkah, if you have one wall that goes, as long as the schach goes with one wall, it's kosher. As long as the other wall is 7 tvachim. The third halacha was if you have most of the sukkahs and the media of the chamas silasa is kosher. Maybe some hold even you sleep under the part which is chamas silasa. And the last halacha was that if you have schach pasel less than 3 tvachim, you not sleep under it also.
If you have air of 3 tvachim, is most of your bar is going to be
Right.
on the other side?
I didn't have an answer for that. Dr. Fine is asking, I think, if I got the question right, that if you have a sukkah 7x7 and you have less than 3 tvachim of air, we're saying the sukkah is kosher, but you can't sleep under it. So how much place do you have to sleep in? 4. A person can fit into 4 tvachim. The whole point of Yeah, but this is Rosh Rubo. The whole halacha of 7x7 is because that's what you need in order to live. Rosh Rubo v'shulchana. And now we're telling him, here's your sukkah, come in, here's your sukkah 7x7, but don't use 3 tvachim of it. So he only has 4 tvachim. Did I get the question right?
Partially. The other part is that how much of your body could part of your body be under the air?
Rosh Rubo.
This-
Doesn't seem too much. Just 4 tvachim, but it's not going to be rubo. Even if you get part of your body, it's not going to be rubo. A regular 7x7, you can get rosh of rubo, but here, if you're only giving him 4 tvachim, 4x7, let's say. you're not
I'm
gonna
saying if you have a large sukkah,
get a lot,
but
so-
you have 3 tvachim of air, can
Yeah.
part of your body be under the feet? If most of your body's under this good
yeah,
stuff,
that's okay. That's
part of
okay.
your body be under the,
Yeah,
That's
that would
okay.
be big sukkah. Yeah, because even the rest of your body can even be out of the sukkah. If you're Rosh Rubo in the
Okay.
sukkah, the rest of you, and also I
To
think
answer Rabbi Fein's question, there was an earlier machlokas where the Chacham Tzvi and the Trumas Hadeshin tried to answer a Ramah, and what they came out was in Teshvu Kain Taduru that you see that we're makshir a sukkah, even though a normal minimum shear sukkah you cannot comfortably sleep because your feet are going to have to be crumpled up. If you imagine that, if you the shear, you're just not going to be able to. So you see that's a kosher sukkah, l'chatchila, and a person might be mitzvah in it. But yet Chazal said it's kosher when the minimum shear sukkah, you cannot extend your feet, a normal person, and sleep in it.
I didn't see it inside. I don't see the problem because your feet don't have to be in the sukkah. The feet are outside. You don't have to crumple. The feet are outside the sukkah. You need Rosh
Exactly, because like you just answered him, Chazal said Rosh Baruvo is considered a valid sukkah, and it's not dependent on actually being comfortable in the sukkah. So here you have to say the same thing, that even though 3 is out, it must be that 4 you can get rubo in, so it'll be kosher.
That makes sense to me because the shear of 7x7 is because you have Rosh Rubo v'shulchana, and if you only have 4, so you don't have Rosh Rubo v'shulchana. So how is it possible to be kosher? How could you sleep in a sukkah? You don't have Rosh Rubo v'shulchana. The kasha seems to be standing still. Okay, we'll look for an answer still. The Mishnah continues. I'm really sorry we don't have pictures, and Lev Yaakov said he wasn't getting the pictures, but I don't know how to control the technical part. I don't know how to get pictures on yet. So we'll have to use our imagination. If a person has a sukkah like a tipi, that's only schach. He took dekel, kosher schach, and he made a tipi out of it. So he has kosher walls, kosher schach, and it's all made out of material which is kosher for schach. So what's wrong with it? You took schach, let's say dekel, palm branches, and you leaned it against the wall. And that's your whole sukkah. You have, of course, the back wall, the floor, and you have the slanty schach, which is kosher schach also. But the problem is that you don't have a distinguishable wall and schach. It means the wall and the roof is all in one. It's a slanty roof, like an attic kind of a thing. An attic that you have a slanty attic. So where's your walls? You look at the same wall. You say, this is my wall, this is my roof. So that's not so simple. But let's suppose, he says it's not a ein gag. It doesn't have a roof. It has a roof, but it's not a roof which is flat in contrast to the wall which is sideways. It's 2 in 1. It's a wall and a roof all in one. That they say is no good. Chacham say it's kosher. So slanty, no matter if it's slanty on all sides like a tipi, or it's going to be one side, that also not good because it's a slanty roof. Chacham say that it's kosher. Tana, we learned in the Brisa, if this, let's say the case of the slanty wall, that you elevated it off the ground 1 tefach. The same thing as before, that you have palm branches leaning on the wall, but it's not from the floor till the wall, it's elevated off the ground. You elevated it somehow, it's off the ground. So that'll be lovewood, that's not a problem, it's lovewood. And the point is that lovewood is going to make that's the lovewood, the 1 tefach of lovewood is going to be considered the wall. And now we have a distinguishable wall and roof. It's true that, of course, the wall is only 1 tefach. You have to have a 10 tefachim wall. You do have a 10 tefachim wall because the schach is all there. These palm branches cover you for both being the schach and the wall. But we want to have something to be able to call there's a wall and there's something distinguishable between the wall and the roof. So if you have 1 tefach, 2 tefachim, 2.5 tefachim, even 1 tefach is enough. That's called that you have some kind of a wall that's going to be lovewood, and then the rest of it is considered the roof. And that's kosher. Or the other answer would be if that it's touching the floor, but it's not touching the wall. It means the case of the mission was that it's touching the floor and the wall. You have slanty schach, palm branches leaning from the floor until the wall. Here,
Excuse me, Rebbe.
Yes.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I did just take a picture of 3 of these cases that I had in my book, and I have it on my.
Much appreciated.
I can share it. if that'll help. Can
Thank
see
you.
these?
Okay, very good, very good.
Wow.
So the top one is the TP we have, so it's on both sides, or leaning it against the wall. And the bottom, this picture shows that it's elevated off the ground, the tefach. And the last picture shows that it's separated from the wall of tefach. Oh no, they show that? It's both elevated. They didn't
That
show
was on
the
it was on a
picture
different page. I
of
didn't
being
take a
moved
picture
away
of
from
it.
the wall of tefach. But the same,
No.
yeah, that's good. So just use imagination. The same way it's elevated off the ground, so it could be touching the ground, elevated and separated from the wall, also by some contraption to at least separate it. And the same idea is going to happen. Now, what do you say? You say lavud, as if there's going to be lavud branches filled in, and you have a roof which is a tefach, and the rest of it's going to be considered a wall. And also it's kosher because since you have a distinguishable wall and roof, so that's considered a chashuv roof already. Very good. Yes, Shakar. Thank you. Okay. Why Rabbanan say that it's kosher? She put a column down because a slanty roof is also considered a roof. But Belez holds a slanty roof is not considered a roof, and Rabbanan say that a slanty roof is considered a roof. Now the Gemara is going to make a jump from being a kosher sukkah to a different subject altogether, which is someone's inside a tent inside the sukkah, which we spoke about before. We spoke about once upon a time Kinofes and an Aklitin, all kinds of canopies, Akila, and we said over there that Akila, which is also some kind of a canopy, but it's made very, very temporary, very arai, and we said it's only possible if it's flat and it's 10 tefachim off the ground. But if it's slanty, it's not considered a separation. And the Gemara is going to compare it to our Mishnah. There's machlokas in our Mishnah. If slanty roof is considered a roof, as far as the schach, these palm branches, and the Gemara is comparing it. The same principle should apply to the opposite case, where you're inside a kosher sukkah and you're under a canopy which is slanty. Abaye Ashkel Rav Yosef the Gagani Bekilas Chastanim B'Sukkah. Abaye found that Rav Yosef that was sleeping inside a canopy inside the sukkah, and it was a slanty canopy. Amalei, why? He said, "I'm Yosef in the sukkah. Even though I'm in the canopy, it's okay because it's a slanty roof." Amalei, come on, Belezer. You're going to Belezer. Belezer in our Mishnah knows that a slanty roof is not considered a roof. And our Mishnah is talking about there's a kosher schach in that. And he says, if you have the schach, like Rabbi Yaakov showed us, the slanty palm branches, it's not a kosher schach because a slanty roof is not a roof. If so, then a slanty roof shouldn't be considered a roof also inside the sukkah. And that's why Rav Yosef was said that I'm Yosef in mitzvah because this ohel that I'm inside a tent inside the sukkah is not considered a separation. But according to Rabbanan, the Rabbanan say Chachamim Machshim, the Chacham say in our Mishnah that a slanty roof is considered a roof and it's a kosher schach. So we have by us, it should be considered also a ohel, which is mafsik, separating between him and the sukkah, and he shouldn't be Yosef to sleep. The Gemara before, when the Gemara spoke about this issue about sleeping in a canopy inside the sukkah, it didn't bring down our sukkah. It didn't compare it to our sugya, but not the Gemara saying this really based on our sugya. It's only not considered a roof according to Rabbi Lezer. According to Rabbanan, it is considered a roof. For man Rabbi Lezer, you're like Rabbi Lezer. Shafkish Rabbanan, Babish Rabbi Lezer. You're leaving means you're forsaking the Rabbanan and doing like Rabbi Lezer. Means you should pass like the Rabbanan against Rabbi Lezer. You should pass like the majority opinion against the minority opinion. So Rabbi Lezer, he's the one who says that it's not considered a roof. But according to Rabbanan, they argue, they say it's a good roof. So too should be considered an ohel, and you shouldn't be allowed to sleep inside a slanty canopy inside a sukkah. Amalei. Raisa Itchatani. It's true in our Mishnah, the Girsa was that Rabbi Lezer says plus of the Chacham say kosher, but the Raisa says opposite Girsa. Rabbi Lezer Mashach Chacham post them that in our Mishnah the Chacham say it's not a good. They're the ones who say it's not a good sukkah. And in Mela they hold that a slanty roof is not a roof, and therefore the canopy inside the sukkah I could sleep inside the canopy. But he still was not upset. Abaye still was not happy. How come you passing like the Bryce's version against the Mishnah's version? Shafkis Mastis Avdis Bryce, you're forsaking the Mishnah's version and you're going to pass according to the Bryce's version? Amalei, yes, because our Mishnah, I have proof that our Mishnah is only one opinion. Mastis Nichidahi. Our Mishnah is only a Das Yachid, it's only a minority opinion who says this version. Because I have a Bryce that says who's the author of our Mishnah. The Tanya also says a commensurate for Shazam Chomakoso, Mamish Mishnah, but it throws in Rav Nassan Omer. Rav Nassan says that Rabbi Lezer posted Mibnei Shem Lagag B'Chachamim Machshivin. He's the one who says so. Rav Nassan had this version, but the other Tanoim had the opposite version, like the Bryce says that Rabbi Lezer says it's kosher because he also said the roof is a roof, and the Chachamim say it's possible because a slanty roof is not a roof. And that's how we paskin, like the Chachamim, the new Chachamim, that say that it's not considered a kosher sukkah. So back to our Mishnah, even though it says in our Mishnah, Rabbi Lezer posel, but we're going to say really the Chachamim pasel. That's where the little olive is over here. That's how we paskin. It's really the Rabbanan, and the application over here is going to be more machmir. That's not a kosher sukkah with a slanty schach. But unless you have a tefach on top or on the bottom, as we said, tefach is good enough. But the application to the canopy halachas over there, we're going to say that a slanty roof is not a roof, and that's how the whole Gemara went before a few pages ago. many pages ago that a slanty roof, as long as it's not 10 fach, whatever the other conditions were, but a slanty roof is not considered a roof. And that's how I'm asking. A little bit more, but that's the Mishnah now because the Gemara goes. No, we could do some of the Gemara, but let's see how we start. We talked about this subject also pages ago, and we're back to it again. Machzelas. Machzelas is a mat, and you want to know if
Rabbi, one question on the maskana. The whole reason for maksher these sukkahs is because once you have a tefach, we have a Taurus ohel, correct?
Yes.
And is that related to the problem that we had with the earlier sugya about perhaps having the walls before the schach before the walls and using that tefach in order to say that maybe the walls are actually there?
I don't follow. You
The
have
earlier,
walls and schach simultaneously. You put up these slanty walls, so you have both of them simultaneously.
okay, and we're using the tefach ohel as to say that we have the walls.
It distinguishes the wall and the roof as two separate entities. Okay? Okay. The Mishnah says, Machzelas kanim gedola. A machzelas, we said machzelas is a mat, and a mat which is made for a bed, for sleep, for sitting, for sleeping, so it's not with makabel tumah, and it's not good for schach. The same material, it's good material. It's made out of things that grow. It's not, but this is makabel tumah, so it depends what you made it for. If you made it for a bed to sleep on, so it's makabel tumah, and it's not kosher schach. If you made it for roofing, so it's not makabel tumah, it is kosher schach. And you bought it in the store, made in China. So is it made for sleeping? Is it made for roofing? Machzelas kanim gedola. You're not made for schach. It was made for in China. What is it made for? So it says here in the Mishnah, Machzelas kanim gedola, a big mat, which seems that it's bigger than the size of a bed. If you made it to sleep on, so it's not good because it's susceptible to tumah, so it's not good for schach. If you made it for roofing, so you use it for schach, it's not makabel tumah, everything's fine. But the Rabbanan said, Machzelas kanim gedola. That's interesting. They said a big one. And the question is, why say a big one? How about a small one? Also, it's to say the same thing. You made it for a bed, it's a bed. You made it for a roof, it's a roof. So they said gedola. Rabbi Lezer says no difference a big one or a small one. Rabbi Lezer Omer gedola. No difference if it's big or small. If you made it for sleeping, it's not good schach because it's makabel tumah. If you made it for roofing, it is good schach. It's not makabel tumah. So the Mishnah seems very simple, and we don't understand the Rabbanan. Yes, please.
That's why all these schachs, whatever.
Are kosher.
But they will have
They have a hechsher that it's made for schach. Right. The hechsher doesn't have to be a real serious hechsher. It has to be that it's made for roofing. It's not made for sleeping. Okay. And if it says on it in Chinese, it says it's made for roofing, it's also good. It doesn't have to be a Rav, a machsher. Yes, no, what it was made for. Okay. But so the Mishnah, as you read the words, the literal words of the Mishnah would sound that you were made specifically, you made it intentionally for sleeping or for schach, and talk about a big one and a small one. Rashi says that the Gemara takes for granted that if you made it specifically, expressly, for a certain purpose, there's no question, we don't care if it's big or small, that's question. If you made it expressly, there's no issue. The only issue is going to be if it was made stam. If you made it without any specific thought, you buy it stam, they say, we don't know what it was made for, so then what do you have to assume? So that's what the Gemara is going to talk about. And the Gemara is going to try to explain what it hold, what it hold. First of all, the Gemara says seems to be a contradiction because if you read the Mishnah plain, it sounds talking about making expressly. Asal l'sicha, asal l'shchiva. You made it for that. It doesn't say stam. It doesn't say it was made without on default. It says you made it for a certain purpose. So how good for kasha? The Mishnah seems to be inherently contradictory. Amit asal l'shchiva mekabel l'stumah ve'emesachim. First, you said if you made this mat expressly for sleeping, then it's no good. But you can deduce from that only if it was made expressly for sleeping. That would sound like it's only not good if you made it expressly for sleeping, for bed. But if you made it stam, it will be kosher. But then the Mishnah says it's only good if you made it expressly for roofing. Then the Mishnah says it's kosher if you made it for schach, for roofing. That's mashma only if you made it expressly for roofing. But that will mean that on default, if you made it for no express reason, then it's not kosher. So the Gemara is asking contradiction. What's halacha if you made it stam? First, the Mishnah mashma that it's not, that it is good, and the Mishnah mashma that it's not good. So the Gemara answers, "Oh, kasha, that's not difficult. Kan b'gedola, kan b'ktana." So even though the Mishnah, if you go back to the Mishnah, it just says gedola. Machzelas kanim gedola. It doesn't say ktana. Tanakama says gedola only, and it seems to say by gedola alone, the shchiva is not good, the sichach it is good, and the Gemara is a contradiction. A lot of people will stam, and the Gemara says you must put in the words that it means here in the Sefer, it means katana. Over here, we're going to put in katana. A big one, if you made it, it means a big one, minastam is kosher. If you made it expressly for a bed, then it's not good. A big one means that it's bigger than the size of a bed. A small one means the size of a bed. And a big one means that it's bigger than the size of a bed. So a big one, minastam, is kosher. If you made it expressly for a bed, so then it's not kosher. And here, stick in the words, katana, over right here. When it's also sicha, stay on a small one. If you made it expressly for roofing, then it's kosher. That would mean that minastam, it's not kosher because it's the size of a bed, probably made for a bed. So it's a little dochak because Mishnah only says gedola, and we're sticking in that it means katana. And the Gemara at this point says that's how you have to learn the Mishnah. We'll stop here. We're in the middle of a sugya. We'll start it again tomorrow just to have started it. So we dipped a little bit into the dipped our toes in. Okay, now thank you everybody. I want to
Thank
join
you.
everybody in my Baruch Hashem. Our son became a chassan last night, yesterday, and Bez Hashem, we thank Hashem and
Risotto. Which son?
Mazel tov, mazel tov.
I didn't hear. Which son?
Shmuel.
Mazel tov.
Thank you.
Binyan Adaya.
Thank you.
Mazel tov, mazel tov. Mazel tov, beautiful.
Did you build a bite? Not my Israel.
Amen. Mazel tov, Rebbe.
Israel.